Snow White is the latest live-action Disney remake starring Rachel Zegler. We follow her as Snow White when she comes across an evil queen, played by Gal Gadot, who does everything in her power to try and be the fairest of them all. And that's all. Putting aside any spoilers to you guys, this will be a spoiler-free review. Oh, this is one of those movies where the comments section is just gonna be utter filth no matter what way you look at it. It's been a long journey for the live-action Snow White movie. We've already talked to death about our thoughts on how we feel about Disney and their live-action remakes. They're gonna continue whether we like it or not, so let's just see if they can do anything good with it. But this movie repeatedly got in the news, not always for the most happiest of reasons. And interesting enough, this movie actually finished filming 3 years ago in June of 2022, and thanks to delays, Hollywood strikes, reshoots, it is now being released in the year 2025. My thoughts on the original Snow White is, yeah, I saw it as a kid, but it wasn't necessarily one of my favorite Disney movies. I also feel like I'm one of the only YouTubers online that doesn't have a raging hate boner for Rachel Zegler or any other of the cast members involved in this movie. I just simply wanted to go to the theater, have a good time, enjoy myself, and after watching Snow White, it didn't exactly do that for me. I'm gonna get into the good and I'm gonna get into the bad. Starting off with the good, I will just say, this movie is not a train wreck. It is not as awful as it's being built up to be online. Like I said, there seems to be a really huge hate campaign for this movie, all for wildly different reasons. But I think if you're someone who grew up with Snow White and everything in the trailers seemed fun to you, or you have a child who wants to be entertained by a Disney classic, this interpretation is going to be passable enough to for sure give you that good time. They hit a lot of the original moments from the cartoon. It's so funny that I had not seen something since I was like probably 4 years old, but the minute a certain tune, song, or imagery pops on screen, it's like I flash back to that kid going, I remember that. Mark Webb is the director in here, and I mainly remember him as being the director for the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man movie, so I honestly did not mind the visual style of Snow White. I kind of like the very vibrant, in-your-face colors. A lot of that same stuff that made his Amazing Spider-Man movies, in my opinion, the best-looking Spider-Man films. I think Rachel Zegler as Snow White does a fantastic job, especially when it comes to the singing performances. The woman has a phenomenal voice, and it really only elevated the old and new songs they threw in there. While not every new song is catchy or even fits into the vibe of some of the older songs brought in from the original cartoon, the ones that Rachel Zegler performs I thought were really well done. And I know I'll probably be on the minority of this positive, but I have to state my case. I didn't mind the dwarves. Are they uncanny and a little weird looking? Sure, but I actually got a bit of a kick out of them from the movie. One thing I really loved is they were actually voiced by professional voice actors, no big real name celebrities, and that added this cartoony old school factor to the voices given to the dwarves. It just felt like a much more authentic choice than having, I don't know, grumpy voice by like Chris Pratt. Don't even want to imagine what that would have been like. But I get it, the CGI and look of them are not for everybody. Really though, that is where my positives end on this movie. I do think it's decent and passable enough for the fans of Snow White, but there were quite a few things in the movie that I thought really held it back and brought it to about an average adaptation. Starting off here, Gal Gadot. She plays the evil queen in the movie, and I, again, am not someone that has this raging hate for an actor. I quite enjoy her as Wonder Woman and a couple of other roles that she's done, but here specifically as the evil queen was not working for me. She has a couple of musical performances and those just did not land. I'm sorry, but I think her thick accent really kind of held her back in those performances. She also is playing it up to a level that feels completely different from all the other actors in this movie. Possibly could have worked if everybody else was playing it up the way she was, but she kind of stood out like a sore thumb. I also found the movie to just be really aimless. Like, there's no real coherent plot or thing to drive the story forward. We are instead just taken from scene to scene that lead us to those iconic moments from the original cartoon. And don't get me wrong, it's like you need to have those moments happen, right? Like the dwarf singing in the mines, hi ho, the evil queen turned into a witch, getting the apple thrown in there. It's like, yes, you need to hit those moments, but every scene in between just kind of felt like fluff, just kind of felt like filler time, and didn't naturally connect together to move the story forward. But the real biggest issue this movie has that I don't know how many people will pick up on, but I did because, hey, I live on the internet and I'm constantly looking at the production of how movies are made. Snow White is a product of two different movie ideas that then were forced to be stitched together to try and please two different sides. Many of you might have remembered years ago when our first look of Snow White appeared on the internet, and it was this photo. Not just that, but then there were leaks and rumors being released that the dwarves are actually not part of this Disney Snow White movie, and instead these 7 dwarves were replaced by the 7 bandits. And that is, I think, where the major hate campaign started for this movie, because it looks like Disney was going in a wildly different route. And I, at the time, didn't even want to believe that the photo was real, because I was like, no way Disney is going to go that out there different for their live action remake. Like, how do they think that's going to please anybody? But it looks like Disney was in a tough situation because they were also trying to be respectful to comments made by Peter Dinklage, who was really against hiring real little people to be the dwarves in Snow White because it just reinforced negative stereotypes on people like him. So maybe that's why they thought the 7 bandit route was the safer way to go. But as soon as the internet saw that, everybody hated it. I didn't think I saw one happy person with that. And this caused major reshoots and changes. And those major reshoots and changes are felt in the movie. Because yes, you have your scenes that included the dwarves that we now know were never supposed to be part of the movie. And I'll tell you right now, if those dwarf scenes, even if you don't like the CGI look of the dwarves, they do add a fun and nostalgia factor that actually makes this feel like the Snow White you remember. So I do think it's a positive inclusion that needed to be part of the movie, but at the same time, they still did not get rid of the bandits. The bandits are in this movie, and they feel like background characters. It is so weird the moment these bandits show up on screen, because you can feel like they're supposed to be part of the story, but they're not really talking, interacting, or being given much depth. They just feel like, why are there just 7 people now hanging out behind the princess and these dwarves? And like a couple of them get like 1 lines or a sentence to say, but they also just kind of stick out and feel unnecessary to everything going on in the movie, especially because a few bandits at the end of the movie get like big moments that are supposed to be clap-worthy cheer moments, but because the movie erased a lot of their development, their characters, or things that they had to do in the movie, it's just like, who are you? What are you doing? So that was just kind of the jarring part to me of Snow White, is clearly seen there was a different route this movie was going to go, and you can tell which scenes were then cut in, cut out to try and mesh these two different ideas of a movie into one. I think it really does come down to when you try to please both sides, you end up pleasing neither side. It's still a miracle to me, though, the movie doesn't feel like a train wreck or a complete disaster. Like I said, it's still passably enjoyable, but it just also wasn't anything memorable to me. So when it comes to Disney's live action Snow White remake, I'm gonna give action 2 stars. There are a couple of sequences of like knights and bandits fighting, but it's more musical numbers than action scenes you're gonna get. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I found the dwarves to be the funniest part of the movie. I think there is gonna be some unintentional humor from Gal Gadot's performance as the evil queen. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I think this like aimless feel the movie has, and like you're just trying to get to iconic moment without having a clear narrative, really held the movie back. Horror in the movie, I'll give 1 star too, since this is aimed for kids and the evil queen has some evil sorcery going on, and the demented forest even gave me Evil Dead vibes, but that's about it. And suspense in the movie, I'm gonna give it 1.5 star because there isn't a clear goal and we're just going from scene to scene. I really found it hard to be invested into what was going on. Casual moviegoers, I'm gonna give this a B+. Cinephiles, I'm gonna give it a C-. And critically, I'm going to give it a C-. For Disney's live action Snow White remake, I think this is a movie you should wait to rent or stream at home.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.
Again, that's just my opinion on the movie, guys. I'm never somebody to root for a movie to fail. If anything, I hope the movie is great. That way we can rub it into the faces of people like that. But when it's genuinely not that good, I gotta be honest. Let me know your opinion on Disney's live action Snow White, what you liked, what you didn't like. Don't forget to like, subscribe. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.